All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going way back to 6th century Paris.
Ooh, Paris.
Not the Paris you're thinking of, though. No Eiffel Tower or croissants this time around.
What? No croissants.
Nope, sorry. This is going to be a deep dive into something maybe even more fascinating. We're digging into power struggles, religious fervor, and a king's dying wish.
Sounds juicy.
Oh, it is. And the best part is we've got this incredible document, The Privilege of the Monastery from 566 AD, one single source, but talk about a story.
All right, you've piqued my interest. Lay it on me. What's this one document tell us?
Well, picture this. It's Paris in the 6th century, muddy streets, wooden buildings, and the biggest, most impressive structures around are churches.
Makes sense. Back then, the church was everything.
Exactly. And ruling over it all is King Chaldebert. Now, he wasn't just any king. This guy was known for his piety, seriously devout. But here's the thing. He's just died.
Okay, so the king is dead. What happens next?
Well, Childebert, devout as he was, he cared about his legacy. He didn't just want to be that king who died. He wanted something grand, something lasting. So he dreams up this incredible basilica right there in Paris, dedicated to the Holy Cross, St. Vincent, you name it, a whole host of saints.
Ambitious. A king with a taste for the divine.
Exactly. And he doesn't stop there. Oh no, Childebert also wants a monastery attached to this basilica, a place where monks would pray for his soul around the clock, ensuring his smooth passage into the afterlife.
Smart move. Monasteries back then were a big deal. They weren't just quiet retreats for prayer. We're talking major players, centers of learning, influence, sometimes even wealthier than the king himself.
Right. And being the founder of a powerful monastery, talk about boosting your reputation even in the afterlife. But here's the catch.
Oh, there's always a catch.
Always. You see, building a monastery wasn't just about good intentions and a big bag of coins. It was about land, resources, influence. And let's be real, the church could be a bit of well, let's just say it wasn't always peaceful back then.
Definitely. Whenever you have power, you have people who want a piece of it. So what did Childebert do?
Well, Childebert, clever guy that he was, knew things could get messy after he was gone. People might try to twist his words, ignore his wishes, maybe even try to grab that monastery for themselves.
Makes sense, so he had to protect his vision somehow.
Exactly. And that's where his will and testament come in. He lays it all out in no uncertain terms. This basilica, this monastery, this is what I want, these are my instructions. Don't even think about messing with it.
A king's last wish, etched in stone. Or at least parchment. But something tells me it might not be that simple.
You'd be right about that. Because even a king's dying wish doesn't always guarantee smooth sailing. And that's where our boy, Bishop Germanus, enters the scene. This wasn't just some random bishop, though. He was close to Childebert. Like a trusted advisor, confidant, maybe even a friend.
So he's personally invested in seeing the king's wishes fulfilled.
100%. And you have to remember, bishops back then, they weren't just religious figures. They were powerful figures in their own right. Political power, economic power, sometimes even military power.
They were like medieval CEOs.
Yeah.
Answerable to the Pope, of course.
Yeah.
But still wielding a lot of influence in their own diocese.
Exactly. And Germanus, he sees this grand plan, this legacy that Childebert is trying to build, and he knows there are people out there who'd love to see it crumble.
Oh, I bet. There's always someone waiting to capitalize on a power vacuum.
Right. So whether it's jealousy, greed, or just a plain old disregard for a dead king's wishes, Germanus knows he has to act, and he has to act decisively.
Hence our document, The Privilege of the Monastery.
Okay.
This is where Germanus lays down the law.
It's more than just laying down the law, though. It's like he anticipated every possible objection, every power grab, and he shut it down preemptively.
He sounds like a chess master, thinking several moves ahead.
Totally. So walk me through this. What kind of legal maneuvering is Germanus doing here? What's at stake?
Well, you have to remember, monasteries weren't just about prayer and contemplation. They were economic powerhouses, too. They owned land, they received donations, and they had this special legal status called immunity.
Immunity, like diplomatic immunity.
Kind of. It meant that monasteries were exempt from certain laws and taxes. They were also often exempt from the authority of local lords or even bishops.
So they were like their own little kingdoms.
In a way, yes. And this is where Germanus makes his big move. He uses his authority to grant this monastery incredible levels of immunity. Basically, he's saying this monastery, it answers directly to the king and by extension to God.
He's cutting out all the middlemen, all those folks who might want to stick their oars in.
Precisely. He's removing any opportunity for interference or manipulation. He's protecting Childebert's vision. And maybe, just maybe, He's securing a bit of power for himself in the process.
So Germanus is building this fortress around the monastery. But instead of stone and mortar, he's using laws and decrees and a whole lot of religious clout.
Exactly. And he's very specific about how this monastery should be run. He wants to make sure there's no room for misinterpretation or manipulation.
So tell me more. What kind of rules and regulations did he lay down? Did he at least let the monks brew their own beer?
Well, the historical records don't mention anything about beer, unfortunately. But when it came to choosing their leader, Germanus actually gave the monks a surprising amount of autonomy.
Oh, really? I wouldn't have pegged him for the democratic type.
Right. It seems counterintuitive, but the document is crystal clear on this point. The abbot, the head honcho of the monastery, had to be chosen by the monks themselves. No outside interference, no bishops, no nobles, just the monks selecting their own leader.
So a little bit of monastic democracy then. Huh. Interesting. But I'm guessing Germanus wasn't giving up all control, was he?
Not a chance. He might have given them freedom to choose their abbot, but when it came to everything else, he drew a very clear line in the sand.
What do you mean?
He basically put the monastery off limits to anyone who wasn't explicitly invited by the abbot. And I mean anyone, even other bishops, even the big guy himself, the metropolitan, the archbishop. No one could meddle in the monastery's affairs unless the abbot said so.
Germanus was serious about protecting this place. He thought of everything.
He really did. And here's the kicker. Remember how we talked about monasteries being magnets for donations, wealthy patrons trying to secure their spot in heaven? Well, Germanus put a stop to that too.
You mean he told them to keep their money?
Not exactly. He declared that any donation made to the monastery, past, present, future, belonged to the monastery, and no one else could touch it, not even the king.
Wow, talk about securing the bag. He wasn't just protecting Chilbert's vision, he was ensuring the monastery's financial future.
Precisely. It was a brilliant strategic move.
Yeah.
And to really hammer home the point, he added a final touch, little something to deter any would-be rule breakers.
Oh, let me guess. Eternal damnation.
Bingo. He outlined in no uncertain terms the consequences for anyone who dared to disobey his meticulously crafted rules. Excommunication, being officially cut off from the church and the community, and of course eternal damnation. It was the medieval equivalent of dropping the mic, with a sight of fire and brimstone.
That's intense. Germanus was clearly not messing around, but he didn't do all of this alone, did he? We've got to talk about those signatures at the end of the document.
Ah, yes. The chorus of approval. It wasn't just Germanus's name on that document. It was a who's who of powerful figures, bishops, priests, deacons, even a scribe, all adding their seals and signatures, seemingly throwing their support behind Germanus's decree.
So he had backup, a whole team of heavy hitters. Makes you wonder, though, were they all truly on board with his power play, or were some of them just trying to avoid becoming his next target?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Unfortunately, we can't hop in a time machine and ask them directly. All we have are these tantalizing clues, these whispers from the past, and the endless puzzle of trying to decipher their motivations.
It's incredible to think that a single document can hold so much history, so much intrigue, so many unanswered questions.
It really is. And that's the beauty of studying history. It's like piecing together a giant puzzle, constantly searching for new clues, reinterpreting the evidence, and trying to understand the forces that shape the world we live in.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the privilege of the monastery.
Agreed. It's been a fascinating journey.
We've gone from a king's dying wish to a bishop's power play, explored the complex relationship between church and state, and even touched on the enduring allure of a good old-fashioned power struggle.
All thanks to one remarkable document.
Exactly. And for our listeners, we'll leave you with this.
Sure.
What would you do to protect something you believe in? Would you bend the rules, challenge authority, or maybe even rewrite the whole game? Just a little something to ponder. Until our next historical adventure.